I really believe in the human spirit. I think what happened in that space was that we saw each other for who we allowed each other to just be. And there was no bullying in this high school. No bullying. We were kind to each other. It was like a very special, wonderful moment. And after I spent a long time lamenting after I left and saw what the rest of the country was doing, I was like, what is happening? And then I lamented for a long time. But now I feel like the message I can go out with is all this work that we're putting into trying to make spaces diverse is totally worth it. Keep doing it. Let's keep going. It's absolutely worth it, because when we get rid of all that crap, all that that othering crap, we're just beautiful with each other.
I think I know you better. Oh, if I knew your recipe. How much love do you put in the bowl when you cook from the soul, trying to feed your family? And do you have hand-me-down treasures from grandma's handwritten letters? You know, the ones with the measurements. And do you have a lot of fun and laugh while you're prepping it? What'd you have for dinner last night? For your daughters and your dinner last night.
Hey, it's Emma and Dimity, your twin hosts of Dinner Last Night, a podcast about how people around the world feed their families and how this daily act connects us all. Today's guest is Paragini Amin, co-founder and creative director of Design for Progress, a strategy and branding firm she runs with her husband that partners with social justice organizations to sharpen how they communicate and connect. Their work focuses on the criminal justice system, specifically mass incarceration and the deep inequalities that define it. And recently, Paragini has been applying her creativity closer to home, developing Things and Things, which is a design-forward conversation game for families, which she's been testing and refining at her own dinner table. In this episode, we also talk about growing up between two cultures in Jersey City, the racism Paragini experienced as a young Indian American girl, and the intentional and radically diverse high school she attended. We also get into perimenopause and HRT, because we're all in our 40s, food as identity, generational cycles, and what it means when you marry someone who does all the cooking and keeps it gourmet every night. We can't wait for you to listen to this episode. Welcome, Paragini. We're so excited to have you on the podcast today.
I'm so excited to be here.
All right, so same question we ask everyone to kick it off. What did you have for dinner last night?
It's a great question, because my dinner last night was absolutely delicious. It was Vietnamese food, which we did not cook ourselves. We were out. We were traveling back from Rockport, Massachusetts, and we stopped in Worcester, Massachusetts, at a Vietnamese spot that we frequent when we travel to Rockport. There was this it's something that you can wrap yourself, right? I love that interactivity. And I got it because Kalash was with us too, my son who's 8 years old. And I thought maybe that would be a fun way for him to interact with food, to create his own little pocket of something. And at first he said no, that he didn't want to do it. And then when it came out and he saw how fun it was, he was like, oh yeah, definitely, I want to do this. And he didn't want to eat the food, but he wanted to wrap. He wanted to make the wraps, and we were like, but we need to eat this.
Was it lob?
No, it was just, you made your own sort of rice wrapped roll. So there was a paper thin rice wrap shaped in a circle. And then they bring out this plastic container that's full of warm water, and you dip the
Oh, yeah. I make these at home.
Oh, you do?
Yes. I haven't recently, but yeah, you have to sort of soak the rice paper.
Right.
But I love that they do that at the restaurant. That's pretty cool.
It was great.
And then you have all the different fillings. Does anyone here know if that's like a typical thing, or was it more interactive for fun? Like, would you actually be making that yourself in Vietnam at a restaurant?
I think so.
Yeah, Emma, I love that. Flashbacks to that. Really? Emma and I backpacked around Vietnam right after college, and I went back with Nolan. It's one of my favorite countries ever. And very different trips with Emma and then Nolan. Nolan and I rock climbed everywhere. But I'm sort of remembering getting a platter with like the vermicelli noodles, right? Fresh basil, all the different things to then wrap up. But I don't remember having to do the soaking part, which is the hardest part, I think, when I do it at home, because it's just time intensive.
Right.
That's so fun.
If you leave it for too long, it gets really gummy and sticks to your plate.
Right. Right. Yeah, the trick that I do at home is I put like a damp like a damp dish towel on a cutting board or damp paper towel. So that helps keep it from getting stuck.
That makes sense. I wonder if we should give the restaurant a note. But it seemed like everyone there knew what they were doing, so.
Well, that sounds like an amazing dinner, and it's always such a treat. I know. I mean, we both live in the same town, and takeout is hard to come by here, and there's not a ton of ethnically different restaurants. You have to travel a little farther for them. So being able to have delicious food that you can't easily get here is such a treat.
Oh, we are the masters of it. We've developed, really my husband, because he needs to have great food and he is the cook in our family. So he makes great food and needs to have great food. And so he just has this nose for great restaurants when we're out and about. And literally a nose. We'd be on a highway and he would see a sign and he'd say, that's the one. And we'd go and it would be absolutely delicious.
Wow, what a superpower. So what does a typical weeknight meal look like in your home with your husband cooking?
I can't even, there's no typical with this man. he will go and, bring home some choice fish and make some very bright, light preparation with it and then have that served alongside. I can't even tell you all the things he does. He's just in there chopping up a bunch of stuff, adding fish sauce, adding things I've never heard of and throwing it together. And maybe I can sum it up with it's often a mix of Southeast Asian with Caribbean. Sometimes it's only South Asian. Sometimes it's French. Sometimes and it'll just be something different every single night. If he had his way, he would go shopping every single day and prepare something absolutely new and delicious every single night. He can't do that. Even though it would be great, but he can't do that. And I just get to eat all this gourmet food.
That's incredible. Yeah, I'm so jealous.
I'm sorry.
We're both just like,
wow.
What? Yeah, it sounds like he really loves food. Like that is his passion and hobby, and you get to be the recipients of it.
Yes, we do. And it has also opened up Kalash's path. Like we made sure that Kalash would not just default into kid food. And he was game. We threw down some rules, but it was mostly because Chris cooks so well, it would be such a shame.
Tell us more about the rules and how you accomplished that.
Well, there was some trial and error. I can start with that and it's okay. We tried to, at some point when Kalash was a lot younger and he was being picky about food, send him to bed without dinner. But my child doesn't eat much to begin with. And so for him, it wasn't much of a consequence. And then he would wake up so hungry and disoriented and not well that it wasn't working. Like the consequence wasn't landing because he wouldn't make the connection, oh, it's because I didn't eat. And we could tell him, but it wouldn't really. He's a very heady kid. And so he's a little disconnected from his body in that way. So that didn't work. But we ended up in a bit of like, we negotiate with him, have 3 more bites and then you can be done. Or if you really, 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 you have to try it. If you really, really, really don't like it, fine, we'll think of something else. Growing up, it was a totally different era. But growing up, my parents having to manage 2 different cultures and being new in this country and not wanting us as their children to feel really othered. It happened anyway, but because they didn't want us to, they're trying their best. They would allow us to eat whatever we wanted during the day, but then at night for dinner, we had to have Gujarati food. So I'm Gujarati. Gujarat is a state in India. And my mom would cook and it was mostly vegetarian. And that's what we'd eat. And it was fine for us. We were very happy to do it. There was really no static there. But that was the type of rule that I thought, like a way, that type of negotiation felt right for me to also try with Kalash. So, okay, you can have something that you would like to do, and then you have to do the thing that we would like for you to do. And let's see how that goes. And it's worked really well. And then he came up with, he works with timestamps. So at one point he said, okay, I will start eating those bean soup dishes when I am 6, Like he literally, and then like his 6th birthday came around and we reminded him and he said, okay. And then he just started eating it.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I guess being heady is like, that's, if I can put it together, it's because his mind needed to have some say.
Right. That's so interesting.
And I feel like our kids need control, right? And control and choice around things. So I see how you're doing that. And I love the approach that your parents took. I am having this challenge right now where my kids eat the school lunch. They won't let me make them lunch anymore because I guess it's not cool to bring your own lunch to school. They're in 4th and 6th grade. And it makes me so anxious because I know that they're not being well fed, and I can see it in the way that they come home, often really dysregulated. And then they often complain about what we cook for dinner as well, which tend to be more flavorful, healthier meals. But I love that orientation to just say, like, during the day, you are choosing how to feed your body. I don't have any say over that, right? I'm not there with you at school, but at night, this is what we eat. I like that approach.
I think it was smart. It wasn't, I mean, I don't know. My brain wasn't developed enough to make the right decisions, to be honest. I don't think I made great decisions for my health in terms of food when I was younger. So
I think it's impossible though, I think we've talked about this, but our parents are also not originally from this country. They're from England and Italy. So we ate a different way in our house as well. And it was really exciting for us to go to other people's houses and have, I don't know, Doritos or soda, and go to school and have tater tots and things that were never available. Not even just available, we weren't allowed to have them in our home. So I think it's really hard for kids. Like, even mine are starting to make that connection. Sometimes they'll say, like, if I make something with tofu, Arlo actually recently said, is tofu healthy? And I was like, yeah, it's super healthy because of, X, Y, and Z. And then he ate it, but they can't always make that connection.
I think also we live in a country where there is an overabundance of choice and there isn't a unifying food culture. So it's difficult to know what kind of choices to make. Like when we were just in Italy, everybody after school goes to the bar cafe and they have merenda, which is usually like a panini with prosciutto and cheese. And that's what everybody has, or gelato. And the quality, I mean, it's changing there too, but the quality of the ingredients are usually better. Gelato is like a more rich whole food, and the serving sizes are different too. So yeah, I think that especially as first generation parents and kids in this country, we struggle a lot to figure out, like, what is it that we're serving so that there isn't this sense of our kids feeling like outsiders, but also retaining our heritage and feeding them a nutritious diet.
There's something that you're all bringing up for me, which is a pride in culture that I think we can play up for our children. And for me, there's a lot of trauma around this because, it was in a moment of this country where racism was rampant in a way that it still is now, but now we know how to talk about it a lot more. And we get our kids talking about it. And so people have there's just robust conversation, and that's good. But then it was hard to instill a sense of pride. And I'm sure my parents didn't even know. They just expected it. And so I think now, though, that could be some sort of principle that we can help our children sort of feel good about and use to evaluate what they're eating, right? Like, is this something that I'm proud of where I come from, what my parents and my family represent. And so this is the type of food that I eat.
Right. Well, I think that also what you're describing, so I love that you mentioned pride and culture, because I think that's something Dimity and I think about a lot. And, as white people, it's easier to be proud of that. I can see how there's different dynamics around being brown or black and othering in this country. And also so many immigrants, even Italian, would
really enforce that their kids assimilated and basically reject the culture completely,
Right.
so that there wasn't this experience of being different. And it's not just immigrants coming to this country. I think that's just a universal human instinct of belonging, is to assimilate and belong and be seen as native so that you can survive. It's just so many dynamics we could tease out there. And I'm curious, you said growing up that your relationship to food wasn't necessarily the healthiest. Can you tell us more about what your relationship with food is like as someone who's experienced these dynamics and as someone who now isn't the primary cook at home?
That's such a deep question. And let's see where I will
Take what you want
start.
from it.
Wow. And so many dynamics, right? So that the dynamics of my childhood, which comes with trauma and also some pride, like a newfound pride, actually. It's a whole other aspect of my life that has blossomed recently. And a pride in my heritage has really come together at 45, which is amazing.
Hi friends, Dim here. Season 2 of Dinner Last Night is our love letter to the Hudson Valley, which is where my family calls home. It's the people, the places, the cultures, and the food that shape family life here. If you want to follow along more closely and get all the extra goodies like recipes, head to dinnerlastnightpod.com and subscribe to our Substack newsletter. Thanks so much for listening. Can you tell us more about that evolution? Like, how were you able to tap into that?
Yes, I can. Should I answer the other question first?
You can, yeah.
Okay. When Chris entered my life, my relationship with food was very utilitarian because I had not learned how to cook myself. Wasn't making enough money to be eating out all the time. I was in New York City, and that's just impossible. You can't eat out all the time. So I made some simple things for myself that were healthy enough, but I treated it as I'm nourishing my body. That's good enough. Poor Chris, marrying someone who had that. Had that backdrop, and then cooking all these gourmet delicious meals. And I appreciated his love for it. And I could actually, being a creative, I could appreciate all of like the food itself. And I started building in my marriage anyway, like for the past 10 years, I've built this real appreciation for the delicacies and the details and how to even tell what's in a dish, right? So Chris was telling me that when he was younger, he was able to deconstruct. That's what he would do. He and his parents would go to a restaurant. He would have something amazing, and he would just say, "Oh, I think this has this, and that in it." So he's just naturally inclined. And now I can do a little bit of that, and that's fun for me. I think for me, it's still utilitarian in some way. I'm like, oh, I want to help my child learn how to do this. To be honest, I would also love to learn how to cook so that I can feed myself healthy food when my husband is not around. So that would be wonderful. This is a little bit of a tangent, and it might be a little weird, and I don't know if we should air it, but
Bring it on.
I was told at some point when I was dipping into the world of magic and consulting a psychic about some matters, she said to me that if I just cooked, I could connect with my ancestors myself, and that I didn't need her. Like, I just need to get into the kitchen, cook. She gave me a couple of simple things to do, and I never did it. So there's that. There's that.
We love magic and all those things. Full body goosebumps. And also, I totally believe that. If we want to go on that tangent after, I'm down.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can go. I mean, I wish I could report to you, results from me having cooked, but I haven't. It might be a block. Maybe I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to hear what they have to say. No, that's not true. I think, oh my goodness, maybe you all are helping me understand. Maybe there's some trauma there that I need to figure out. Even though I had no problems eating Indian food when I was younger, the bullying and racism that I experienced when I was a kid made me not want to be Indian. And so that's just like there are probably all these layers, and I bet cooking is wrapped up in there.
I can imagine. I know you grew up in New Jersey, right?
Yeah, I love my hometown. It's Jersey City.
Yeah, okay. And I remember we've talked about this before, but your high school was very diverse, right? So that was a stark contrast from earlier school years. So I'd love if you are open to sharing more about like how, I don't know, the evolution from the bullying and racism that you experienced at a younger age and how that then felt going into a high school where you were surrounded by all these different people from different cultures, and whether there was some like healing there and how that's then shaped you now.
Yes, I would say as a young person who didn't have much language around what was happening, like my parents didn't really know. I told them later on when I was a full grown adult and had dealt with a lot of it myself, like, hey, this is what was happening in school when I was, 9 years old. And they said, well, you should have told us. We would have talked to the principal. I was like, first, that wasn't going to do anything, but yeah, it's, they didn't know that they came to a country with such intense racism, which is fine. I understand. I definitely understand. I mean, they came from hundreds of years of British colonialism, right? So, which is its own beast. And the United States seemed to be hope, right, for something that was different. Anyway, so I didn't have the language inside the house, outside the house. The school wasn't dealing with that. Us as kids, we didn't know or understand. Although I distinctly remember having a thought, maybe when I was 10, I don't treat people like this. Why do they treat me? Why do they do that? And then I thought, oh, it's their parents. It was just like a nice understanding, like, oh, they're doing something that they were taught somehow, somewhere. And now we have to deal with it. So that was that. That was the only thought I had. And then moving into that very diverse high school was absolutely a breath of fresh air. It was amazing. Emma, it's on purpose a desegregation high school. And I learned from a reunion that I went to a couple of years ago, which was decades after I graduated, that when it was started because of a mandate from the state. And it was underfunded because nobody thought it would work. It had a quota system that was supposed to track with the racial breakdown of Jersey City. It was called Academic High School. The teacher who I talked to who told me about this history said that the only reason that it worked, well, first of all, it was a box of a building. It had one staircase going up, one staircase coming down. It had one multi-purpose room where we did everything except the classrooms. So there was like a small music area. There was like a couple of bookshelves as a library. there was like it was ridiculous. We had to get bused somewhere else to do phys ed. So it was underfunded. It had that quota system and then, a cap on how many kids could be there. So you had to sort of apply to get in. You didn't have to test, but you had to apply. So there were all these kids from different racial backgrounds who wanted to be in school there together in this tiny box. And the teacher who I spoke to said that the only reason it worked is because the kids made it work. I mean,
wow,
beautiful, right?
That's incredible. Do you think that's because the kids who were coming there were coming from this shared experience of maybe feeling othered, not having their people? And yeah, I'm curious,
maybe. I think, and maybe this is, I don't know. I'm a hopeful person. I was a cheerleader in high school. So this is I really believe in the human spirit. I think what happened in that space was that we saw each other for who we allowed each other to just be. And there was no bullying in this high school. No bullying. We were kind to each other. It was like a very special, wonderful moment. And after I spent a long time lamenting after I left and saw what the rest of the country was doing, was like, what is happening? And then I lamented for a long time. But now I feel like the message I can go out with is all this work that we're putting into trying to make spaces diverse is totally worth it. Keep doing it. Let's keep going. It's absolutely worth it because when we get rid of all that crap, all that that othering crap, we're just beautiful with each other.
I'm curious, where did you end up going to college and how did this continued
yes.
like reclaiming of your heritage?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, can I insert some food? Because I just want to make sure that
yes, please.
I hit the food notes. And actually to a recent question of yours, Dimity, I think one other reason that it worked for us is because of the economic situation for most of us in Jersey City was maybe middle class to lower middle class to poor, right? So it went this way and we all just it felt okay, right? Except poverty sucks, so that doesn't feel okay. But so on the food, no, my parents gave me, a bit of an allowance just to have lunch. But our culture, the kid culture was like, oh, but we need other things, right? So we would just like buy a cookie for lunch and like go the whole day without lunch. And it wasn't just me, there was a group of us that didn't have, money in that way to go see a movie at the end of the week or go buy the shirt that you wanted or whatever it was that we were saving that money for. So I think that affected my relationship with food a lot, which then became utilitarian and all of this. But also, I mean, I would say that my mom was a little bit of a rebel. Sorry, I'm just going to insert this because my mom's great. And she was a bit of a rebel. Sexism is everywhere. And in our culture, the way it played out was, she had to do all of the cooking and she sort of resented it. Like she got pulled out of, she went to school in India and she had hopes and dreams for what she was going to do with her education. But, she ended up in a role that was pretty typical for a woman in our culture. And so she sort of resented it. And I think, I won't blame her, but I think she didn't teach me to cook on purpose. And I'm sure I was also a rebel and annoying.
That's so funny. I was thinking this morning after reading your bio where you said your husband does all the cooking. We've had so many guests on this podcast whose husbands are the main cooks in the house. But also there's this idea of breaking the cycle, the generational cycle, right? So your mom maybe subconsciously or deliberately not teaching you how to cook was her way of saying, I want something different for my child, it's interesting the way that shows up.
So interesting. I agree. I think that's what she did. She says to me, you're strong because I'm strong. Right. If you think about her life, though, she has had this typical role of of someone who had to please other people, right? Or follow rules that were imposed on her. But she'll just be like, yeah, and look how strong I am. It's amazing.
Hi, friends. Quick pause to say thank you so much for listening. It's really nice to know we're not just sitting here talking to ourselves. Though, to be fair, we'd probably be doing that anyways. Definitely. Season 2 is our love letter to the Hudson Valley, and we're thrilled to be sharing our guests' extraordinary stories and wisdom with you. Did you know that for each episode, we're also offering an exclusive giveaway that includes a gift from one of our guests or a copy of one of our own cookbooks? You don't want to miss these. And it's so easy to enter the giveaway. All you need to do is head to bit.ly DLN giveaway. That's DLN giveaway, all lowercase, and enter your email. The link's also in the show notes. All right, back to the episode. I think that's pretty awesome, actually. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you're right, Dem. We have interviewed a lot of people where the husbands are the primary cooks, and that's great. Like, there's so much that mothers have to do simply because of our biology. Like, why not open up some more space in areas where we don't?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like they're off hunting for days anymore. So get them in the kitchen. Back to college.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Is there someone you know who is off?
There's so many things to talk about.
So many things.
On that note, though, have you experienced, because when we first had our child, Chris would constantly leave the house for this or that thing that we didn't exactly need. I was like, what is happening? We have this little thing.
That's so interesting.
And then my doula at the time, who was just my friend, she lived like on the other side of the country, so she wasn't actually perform her doula duties, but she did give me some insight. She said, no, this is typical. This is like the remnants of them going out and hunting and getting the food or whatever. Because
I love that. That is so funny. I've been thinking a lot about biology lately, and we don't usually talk about sex on this podcast, but to go on a totally different tangent, I've been thinking about how women are often so shamed when they don't have a libido as they get older. And everything in society is like, do these things to fix it, right? But biologically, in our 40s and 50s, we're done having kids. So there must be a reason that the libido drops. So I've been thinking a lot about that lately as I'm in my 40s and, starting to think about hormone replacement therapy and all these things. It's also interesting that you mentioned that about the husbands going off to get the things we need, because Nolan is always happy to do the grocery shopping. I hate it. He always, if I need something, he's happy to run out and get it. Whereas that feels like such a chore for me to get in the car and go drive to pick up something that I don't really need, but he's happy to do it.
Also, you have to go back to the libido thing because you didn't finish
No, you didn't.
your hypothesis. I have been saying this
my hypothesis
to everybody.
is we're done having babies. So why do we need... Oh, is there more?
Well, that, but also... Why is all the attention focused on helping women increase their libido? Why aren't we helping men decrease their libido to match where we are biologically?
So they don't feel shame, because we don't want them to feel shamed either that they still have a high libido, right? It's just this mismatch of, I don't know, and then
design.
That's very compassionate of you, Dimity.
And of course, there are women who have a high libido, right? As they age.
Yes.
It's a generalization, but I think that is so interesting, Dim. I hadn't thought about. It's just with everything related to sexual health, it's always the attention is on the woman and, birth control, whatever it is, right? Men already get to kind of cruise.
I mean, I don't mind talking about it, but I am on HRT and it's expensive. And even the pharmacists are like, yeah, and the men's hormonal stuff is way cheaper. Testosterone is way cheaper.
Have you heard about that? The pink tax?
The pink tax?
Yeah, I can't remember where I heard this term. It's not an original idea, but this idea that things for women, haircuts. Granted, we have bras, underwear, makeup, shaving cream, all the things that you need as a woman. Skincare. I just recently stopped using most of my skincare products because I was just having whatever. It's probably hormonal, lots of eczema and dryness. And I realized the amount of money that I spend on skincare products is obscene compared to what my husband spends. He doesn't even do anything. It's all the things that we're targeted for and we think we have to buy, and so many tangents. Okay, where'd you go to college?
I know, I actually, now I'm let's talk about hormone replacement therapy because that we have touched, we've almost touched that topic so many times. I think that's very relevant for people listening to this. And I just made an appointment to get started on that as well, because the range of symptoms that I experience, I'm just realizing I don't necessarily have to tolerate this if there's something. So can you tell us about that?
Yes, I love talking about it because there is this backdrop in this country of some taboo around it. And what I remember is that there was some moment in our recent history where some study came out that said that if there was something wrong with HRT. And since it's been debunked, but people don't know that, right? And people think, oh no, that's...
Yes, it was a very small study that was done on women that were well past menopause. And there was a very insubstantial link to breast cancer. And it was done many, many years ago. Yes.
That one. Yeah. that one little thing. Tip the whole... for us, we could go into the inception of this country and the social norms around gender and the religious undertones. We could go into all of that feeds into, this one study breaking all of our, breaking everybody's trust in that, it's not. Anyway, but we won't. The series of events that led me to HRT, I like talking about because I met a woman at a summer camp, one of Kalash's summer camps, who is from Europe. I forget exactly what country, but she was older than me and I had not started HRT yet. And she told me, hey, and I forget what we were even talking about, but she brought it up, which is why I just bring it up now. But she brought it up and she said, hey, in my country, when this happens, we just go ask for it and we get it. And that's the end of the story. And it's great. And I thought, okay. And I just sort of logged that in my head. And so then I started feeling a lot of symptoms, and I probably had been for a while and didn't realize it. The night, waking up a lot at night, hot flashes, irritability. I really wasn't. I was just so angry about the littlest things. And I can be angry about things, but it was a little beyond. And I didn't understand what was going on. Or I thought maybe, but I'm 45 and that was maybe 44, or 43. I can't remember. And I thought, isn't this early? I don't know. Right. And then since I've learned that South Asian women might start menopause earlier, so there's a racial aspect to it. So I talked to an OBGYN and she wanted to put me on antidepressants or the birth control pill. And she said, this is where we start. Because if you want, it's just about managing symptoms, and your symptoms are maybe you're feeling some depression, there's anxiety, you're not sleeping, just these are the things that can help you. Which way do you want, where do you want to start? And I was just sitting there in the office like, what? I thought, just a little bit confused. And I was like, shouldn't you tell me? Aren't you listening to what I'm saying? And why don't you make this decision? And she was leaving it up to me. And then that made me just not trust the whole thing. I was like, why am I left to making this decision when I came in thinking I was going to get HRT? And so now I'm very confused. So let me go home and do some research. And I'm the kind of person it's very hard for me to follow up with doctor's appointments and all this stuff. So then months go by and I'm still waking up at night multiple times. It's awful. So the fourth time I woke up one night, I thought, forget this. I just went online, looked through a bunch of studies, right? Like, what is the blocker here? Why does this person not give me HRT? And there was nothing that said that it was a problem and why not try it? And so I just found an online place. They gave me an appointment almost right away. I filled out all my forms during all that. It was like an appointment within 36 hours, I think. And I talked to somebody and she was like, yeah, South Asian women actually do start earlier. Like that's what we're seeing. And you should try it. It sounds like you have you're a good candidate to try this. And if something isn't working, we can always adjust. And I said, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Especially because of what I heard from the woman who's from another country who said that they just start. And then I started and everything was better. And I can't say the same for all, like I have other friends in my age group who are, and it's not the same for everybody. And you do have to try, there's some trial and error. But for me, it was like this.
I have a friend who had the same experience overnight. Her night wake-ups, mood, constant exhaustion, different inflammation in her body. All of that was immediately resolved with progesterone only. And it sounds like she's having trial and error with estrogen. It does sound like there's tweaking for everybody, but I actually sort of like that it's something that is customized. It makes it less of a one-fit-all silver bullet like antidepressants. It's not to say that that's not a viable path and people don't need that, but I had a similar experience I actually went on antidepressants and I didn't stay with it long enough to even see the results because I felt so terrible starting it. And I just felt like, I think that there's something else I need. I don't think it's actually anxiety and depression. I think it's tolerating and withstanding all these other symptoms that are impacting me. Yeah, it's so interesting. Thanks for sharing your experience with us.
Happy to. So then I saw the OBGYN again. I think, I have no disdain for doctors. It's not like I love doctors. I think doctors are great. They do so much. They study so much just to give us some relief. And it's amazing. But when I saw her, this is just because, Emma, you're talking about your friend who just saw results overnight. So did I. And when I was a little scared to go see her again because I went to this online place. And I was like, so I did this thing. And she said, well, is it working for you? And I said, yeah, like right away. It worked overnight. And she looked at me, she's like, oh, maybe that was placebo. So I just want to, I think the medical industry does not train. And maybe it was placebo. I don't know, but maybe it wasn't.
No, but they don't train. They have Emma and I I have two really good friends who are OBGYNs, and they don't study this. One is doing a certification in peri and postmenopause and menopause in general so that she can better help her patients because it's not a subject they go in depth on, which is crazy if you think about it. Like the number of evolutions we have in a woman's body, right? And that's one of the pivotal ones. There's so much more emphasis on birth and getting pregnant, but then the other side of that is just kind of completely overlooked. I was just thinking, I don't think that the question about where you went to college wants to be answered. So I'm going to invite Dimity has a great question that she's going to jump in with.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I'm dying. You and I sort of bonded over the fact that we felt like our husbands are very American.
Oh.
And the way, I don't know if you remember that conversation we had,
Yes.
but the way that you're describing him and how he was raised and the way that he cooks is pretty eclectic. So I'm curious to hear more about what that means to you first, right? Very American. For me, my husband's parents are from Buffalo, New York in the Midwest. So like very, we'll do barbecues and there's huge tubs of really mayonnaise-y potato salad and corn on the cob and macaroni and cheese, things that I don't love and have had to adjust to. But yeah, what does that look like for you? And it sounds like he really honors your heritage in the way that he cooks. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yes. Yes, it's also a very deep question. This has to do with college, actually. So why don't we revisit?
Look at that. Before we close out this episode, we want to make sure you know how much we love you and appreciate you listening. If this conversation made you think of someone in your life, we'd love it if you shared it with them. Send a text, a DM, however you share the things that inspire you. That's the best way to help spread these beautiful real-life stories from our incredible guests. We're really grateful for your support. Back to the episode.
Well, I went to college in Boston, and my husband, Chris, is from Boston, Cambridge. I met him there. And then we lost touch for 12 years and re-met in New York City through a different set of mutual friends. And then we got married. I said he's very American. I think the very American part is small family culture. So less about food.
Like nuclear family. Yeah, less like cousins, grandparents, people around all the time.
Right. The people around all the time, the sharing of space all the time, the not like wanting to be with everybody all the time. Like for me, that's a default. Maybe it's changing now. There's a whole other story that I think you asked me about that I've skipped. But yeah, so that piece I think is a crucial difference because we've decided to be in a family together, right? So that family culture and his family culture, there's some clashing there, and we've had to adjust to each other and learn each other. And we have. It's good. On the food aspect, I mean, like I said, he was able to pick food apart when he was young. His dad has great taste in food. His mom has great taste in food. And I think that's still very American in a way because America is this diversity of cultures. And so I feel like if you're open to it, that is American. Right? Like it is American to know about all these different cuisines and know how to taste them and appreciate them. And for Chris, who's just naturally talented at cooking too, and he makes them. So I think he would hope that part of what I fell in love with was this cooking aspect of his. It's not, but I'm happy. I will.
It's a perk.
Take it. It's a huge perk. But it does though signal that you are cultured, you know about different cultures. And that's helpful for me, yes, to feel seen and heard and safe.
Now, do you think, and I'm curious, I don't know how Chris grew up. What I immediately thought about was this idea that often being exposed to lots of different types of food in America, there's a little bit of a correlation with being raised in a privileged household, right? Like you have more money, you can have sushi, you can go to all these different places. What do you think about that?
I think that's true. I think we were rich with culture. Having a cuisine that is so flavorful, I think is what set my palate to be able to, right.
Yes. And the distinction is that for me, I think it's like American, people who grow up in a very American culture, there's a connection between privilege. I think if you grow up in America, coming from another culture and having that different culture, that already sets you up to be open to new things, right? Because you're sort of living between cultures. So that totally makes sense. And South Asian food is some of the most flavorful,
oh yeah,
most amazing food.
Power packed. But I understand your question. And I was averting part of the answer, but I will say it. I do think I agree that economic privilege allows an American family to have that diversity, unless you're in Jersey City in the 80s. So,
Right.
like
And it's
Chris's family,
everywhere.
yeah, it's everywhere. It's all immigrants from other countries that are not economically stable, or, that it's just immigrants coming for a better life who are not necessarily rich and setting up restaurants or having, ways for themselves, their own communities to have the food that they're used to. And then we get to have that. Like I grew up eating Ecuadorian food and Filipino food and like all of this. And there were places we can go get that. But there are also my friends, Egyptian. But I wanted to get back to, I think Chris's family was economically privileged, and that is how he was able to taste a lot of different foods and then pick them apart and then, be inspired and become the cook he is. Yeah.
So some of my work has been in helping giving access and education around fresh food and wider ranges of fruits and vegetables to kids in low-income elementary schools. And I think that there's this assumption that if you are from a poorer household, you don't care about fresh food. And similarly, there might be this assumption that if you're from a poorer household, you don't care about or know about other cuisines. But I think that actually it's probably a personal preference, right? Or connected to the family you're from. And people have different desires and inclinations towards these things despite or regardless of economic background. So I just want to note that because I think I so often, and I've seen this in my work over the past 20 years, just assume, because these families don't have access to fresh, local, organic food, they don't want it. But actually, often it is the poorest families and especially immigrant families who want that because that is what is important in their culture.
That's right.
So
not necessarily
it's
organic,
interesting.
but yeah, fresh food that
right, fresh food.
Yeah, that you can take and make amazing cuisine out of.
This is such a great conversation. It's just this idea of cultural relevance as well. We had a guest on, maybe you know her, Eliza Blank, at the beginning of this season, who works for FarmLink, and they donate millions of pounds of food from farms to the charitable food system. And one of the things they think about is, is this produce that we're donating to this location culturally relevant to the demographics of that area? Because you might get something that you have no idea how to cook or doesn't fit into your food culture. So, I mean, it's all so nuanced, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're running out of time. We have to talk about things and things.
Yes, I guess we do. Yes, that's a good idea.
So you just created this amazing game. Emma and I love table games. It's something we've incorporated into our family dinners since our kids were very little, even, with just basic games like 20 questions and Would You Rather, Two Truths and a Lie. And so I love this game that you've created. I want to give you the opportunity to describe it and sort of how it came to fruition.
Okay. I was like, should I read the description? So Things and Things is a twist on a conversation deck. And the idea behind it is that conversations are in our culture may be difficult to have, especially with younger kids well, I don't even know about difficult to have. We do want to talk. Like we all want to talk and express ourselves and communicate and connect. And it can just be tough, right? To use language to describe things that are sort of like emotions or invisible, like stuff that's going on in our minds. And so I think that's why conversation decks came about in the first place. And Kalash, our son, actually does pull out. We have another one. The first one that we have, I forget the name of it. I'm so sorry. There's so many, but he would go to grab that deck because he wanted to talk. So my child is, he's very much in his own head and there's a lot going on in there, but it's very difficult to get it to come out in language. So he's an artist and he's a musician. He goes wild on his drums and painting and all of this. But then when it comes to a conversation, it's like one-word answers. And I'm a creative and I love talking and I play with a lot of different things and I like making crazy connections and I just love conversation in that way. And so it's been a little bit of a having a relationship with my son that is fulfilling in that way for me has been a little tough. And so it was great that he would pull this deck out and we would try to answer these questions, but his answers were also still sort of one word, but they would be deeper, right? We would have more meaningful conversation because the questions were meaningful. So that's the backdrop. Wanting a more meaningful conversation with my child. And when this idea of adding objects to this gameplay came about, it comes from my career as a designer. So I'm a brand designer, a brand strategist and brand designer for nonprofits, which is, and specifically nonprofits that work in the criminal justice reform space, which is so niche. That's because I started on the policy reform side and then became a designer because I recognized that we were going to be competing for attention for really important ideas, well-researched ideas. And, we want to galvanize people around this incredible issue that we have in this country, which is mass incarceration and the inequality that exists in that. I mean, it's beyond. It's like the United States, it's a crime against humanity and needs to be elevated to that. So I thought, let me be a designer so I can get this information out properly in the world. That requires a really crazy translation of tough and important ideas into colors and lines. And I do that. And so adding objects, physical things that are made up of shapes and colors and lines to this deck was like how I actually do life. Like I look at physical things in the world and they are metaphors to me. They represent invisible things. And so anyway, that's how I do my work. That's how I do life in a lot of ways. That all came together. And what keeps me going with things and things, honestly, is that when Kalash played with it, when the objects appeared and they were part of the gameplay, he just opened up. He didn't necessarily open up with like a depth of information that was coming from but he opened up. You get excited holding these objects, thinking about what they could mean. And I mean, I had to teach a little bit how to use metaphor or like what metaphor meant or like what we're really talking about, answering these like life questions with like these objects that might not make any sense, but to think about them as shapes and lines and not, think about them in all these different ways, just be open. And then he was open and he would just make up all kinds of silly things. So that is the joy that I'm moving with with this game. It's like, oh, I saw that happen. And if that can happen for other families, that's good for me.
That's so cool. I love hearing the origin story. And I think, we played this actually with Emma's family. We played it with objects that we just had in the house. This was like pre your prototype. But then this was so exciting to the kids because what kid doesn't want to open a little box with all of these objects? And there's like, what I love is that you also have objects within objects, right? Like you can use the crate, this little box that has things in it, and this crate. And I like what you said about teaching metaphor, because I think at first for my kids, it was very, and still is like very literal, right? They're like, there were some things where they would try to find the object that matched exactly what the answer was in a very literal way. But I think, it's something that can sort of develop their own ability to make connections and use vocabulary and be imaginative and creative. And also talk about big, hard topics. I don't want to skim over what you said about prisons in the U.S. because that is a huge issue. And like you said, a crime against humanity. We have a dear friend who works for the Cornell Prison Education Program, and that's just given us so much insight into what is actually happening. And I'll just pin a side note. We really want to do an interview with people who are incarcerated and to talk about food as a gateway to their experience in prisons. What's so beautiful about the game Things and Things is that you're choosing joy as a format for discussion. And so often hard topics get sucked into this negative spiral and drain. I mean, politics is a great example, which leave us in this place of where there's a lack of creative thinking and a lack of creativity, which is what we need to make progress and change. And obviously, you know this because it's at the heart of what you do.
Yes, Emma, thank you for that. Actually, I think that I hadn't really put it in that language before, to be honest. And so thank you for this opportunity to make it clear.
Absolutely. can totally take that for your game description. We'll send you the recording.
Perfect. And thank you for playing. There are a handful of families with test kits with them right now, and they all played at least once. And I have some feedback from them. And I think I need to make some tweaks. Yeah. So the kids are really into just tearing the thing open. Like the objects are a draw, which, is planned. It's planned. The objects are a draw. They're fun. I think as we're all sort of like Schmeagles, like little objects are super interesting. I mean, it's kind of magic that anything exists, right? Sorry, no, I'm just gonna.
Totally.
It's just like not like what is this, right? Is that like we have stuff, we have things we can touch and feel. And what's the stat? About 40% of our brains are dedicated to visuals. We just naturally think with visuals. And the families, I think across the board, the kids loved the objects. The objects were great. They got into answering the questions with the objects. Sometimes they would try to fit their answer to the object, which, there's a little card in there that said, have fun, do whatever. Don't even use an object if you don't want to. Don't answer a question if you don't want to. It's fine, have fun with it.
Or add another object.
Yes, add another object to your answer. Bring in things from around the house, which I think we started that way. Our family started by just putting, that's how we play tested before I made objects and bought objects. And there's something that happens with like your personal connection that you already have with these objects that you've seen around the house. I think that maybe you're more comfortable. For us, it seemed like we were more comfortable with those objects. But we've played so many times, it didn't matter. We could bring in whatever object and use them. The adults, I would say, a few of them said it was difficult for them to get into not just answering straightforward, not just answering the question, right? Just like, I have an answer. And that makes sense because as adults, we can do that. We could just answer the question. We don't need to make it, we don't need to use metaphor necessarily if we're comfortable. And I don't know if did you experience that?
No, but I'll tell you a funny piece of feedback from our playing is that they were so excited about the objects and picking a card and an object that they didn't even want to hear my answer or Nolan's. They're like, nope, we're on to the next one, which is part of what I love about these types of games as well. Is it's helping our kids develop the skills of sitting at the dinner table and having conversation, right? In a way that meets them where they are. Like we can't expect little kids to sit at the table and talk about the things grown-ups might talk about. So I appreciate this approach. I feel like the tactile edition is so smart.
Thank you.
Well, I haven't played the game yet, but I'm curious if there is a way that like everyone has to do something after you've spoken. Like, for example, you share first and then you have to guess what object they've chosen. Something that is like almost like a charades element or, would you rather, where there's an investment in people's answers.
Yes.
It's fun.
Emma, you're pointing at so over the break, Chris and I played with some friends of ours who are adults. So it was just us 4 adults playing. And it was great. It was good, just the gameplay as it was. And then our friend said, why don't we try to play this other type of game that we would play with our friend group, which is that someone just thinks of something and the rest of the group tries to guess what they're thinking about, which is a ridiculous game, but it's so fun.
We play that.
You do?
Yes. Because it's like 20 questions, but anything. The kids came up with that. That's so funny. We play a similar game called Contact, which is an improv game. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's where you think of a word or you're describing something that would give the person the letter. So if I say something red, crispy, sweet, and round, what would you think it was?
An apple?
Yeah. So if you think it's an apple and Emma thinks Emma thinks it's an apple and you think you might both have the same answer, you would say contact and then you would say what it is. And then the person guessing the thing has to give you that letter, the first letter.
The letter.
The letter of the word, which might not be A. It's just a bigger thing that they're thinking of. So I like that idea.
That's so cool.
It's so fun.
Wait, is the letter like a point? You get a point?
So let's say the word I was thinking of was pen, and because you both said contact and guessed the thing I was thinking, then I'm going to give you the P.
P. Oh,
It's kind
I
of a
see.
complicated game. Our
It's a
kids
little
did pick it up though. It is complicated. We do it when we hike. It's a good conversation
so
game while you're
nice.
moving. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
It must be a sign of perimenopause that I thought something round, crispy, red, and sweet was
Was what?
was the first thing that came to mind was like a brown rice cracker, and then the second thing, then the second thing was a Chinese red date. I was just like scanning what's on my mouth.
Also at our mom's house right now, and she is convinced that, and she's not wrong. It's true. These red Chinese dates, they're dried and they are really helpful for keeping you regular.
Oh,
Amazing.
amazing.
It's like a huge tub on the counter, and she eats them every
And
day.
they're kind of crispy. They're not round. They're more oval.
Are they tasty?
Yeah, they are. I
they
like
are.
them. Yeah, they're not as sweet as regular dates.
No, they're delicious. We first discovered them. Do you know the book, The First 40 Days, which is like a postpartum recipe book?
No.
Oh my gosh.
I should have it.
So it's a great book. I mean, those recipes I still make. It's based on the author's Chinese traditions. And there's a recipe for red date soup. And it's like a broth with red dates. And because they're dried, they become hydrated. They have this lovely, almost like caramel flavor. But then with rice noodles, ginger, chicken, I think there might be miso in it.
Yeah.
But that's how we
Yum.
first discovered the red dates.
Yum. Oh, I can't wait.
sounds so
I'll go tell
good.
Chris and then he'll go get them.
Well, there are so many more questions I want to ask you and things I want to talk about, like living near your parents, the magic of cooking. I think we're going to have to do a follow-up because we want to.
Yeah, so fun.
Yeah. But thank you so much for joining us. This has been such an amazing conversation.
Likewise.
I truly
You two-
loved it.
Yeah, you two are fantastic. It's lovely to be in community with you both.
You too.
You too. Thank you, Paragini.
Thanks, Paragini.
Before you go, I just wanted to say one more time, thank you so much for listening to Dinner Last Night. Feeding our families isn't always easy, but dinner is almost always a story worth sharing and a meal that connects us all. Dinner Last Night is co-produced by us, Emma Frisch and Dimity Palmer-Smith, your twin hosts behind the show. And the episodes in Season 2 are edited by Stuart Hetzler. The theme song We Can't Stop Dancing To is written by Emerson Longstory Bartlett, featuring Drew Martin on saxophone. And yes, that's a chorus of our kids you hear singing along. To get all the juicy extra bits that accompany each episode, like recipes and giveaways, you can subscribe to our newsletter at dinnerlastnightpod.com. And every episode includes a special giveaway, which you can enter through the link in the show notes or by heading to bit.ly/DLN giveaway. That's DLN giveaway, all in lowercase. You can also follow us on Instagram at dinnerlastnightpod for guest highlights, micro street interviews where we buck up and ask strangers what they had for dinner last night, dinner time inspiration, and cheesy twin moments. From our table to yours, thank you so much for being part of this journey, and thank you for listening.
What you have for dinner last night? For your daughters and your sons versus where you come from. What you have for dinner last night? How many meals can you make in your mind? What you have for dinner last night? You got some tips for saving some time? What you have for dinner last night? Dinner last night. I think I know you better if I know your recipe. Think we're in this together, 'cause we all gotta eat.